Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, welcome everyone to the Transportation Advisory Board, April 16th meeting. We're going to go ahead and start. The CDOT representative, Gina, is running just a tad bit late, so we're going to hopefully sink in with her time when she arrives. So I want to start with public comment. If there's anything emailed in, anyone from the floor, okay. Then we'll go on to trustee liaison update. Trustee Ego.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So there are no requests of TAB from the town board. And currently we have 3 positions available on TAB. Linda and Joan, I think, are up at the end of their terms, and those are plus 1 more. So depending on how many people apply, that could be a very easy, peaceful process that's efficient. We talked a little bit about within the town board of appointing, just automatically renewing versus interviewing and opening it up for a change of perspective if that's available. So it is something that you reapply for, but the reappointment process may be very easy for us. So hopefully it'll go quickly. The application period ends tomorrow. If you know anybody, please mention it to them to put an application in. And then the final thing I have is in response to the email statements that were made on behalf of TAB by our chair in an email in March, and then statements at our March TAB meeting, and subsequent members regarding my performance as the liaison, I have requested a discussion and action item to be added to the town board meeting on April 22nd. The issues raised by Chair Morris were serious, and any action or changes to the Transportation Advisory Board would require a public discussion and a vote by the entire town board. In an effort to resolve those issues that were raised, I have already met with Chair Morris and the mayor together. The mayor has independently interviewed several members of the TAB and staff. I will present that information that's been gathered for the town board trustees to discuss and determine any next steps that should be taken. And I'm happy to personally answer any questions or share more information about this after the meeting today or prior to the April 22nd town board meeting. And that concludes my report.
I do want to assure all the people that I met with that all those conversations are confidential. The information that I took in is simply gathered in my hopper, and then my opinions are shared appropriately.
Thanks for that clarification, Mayor. That's it.
Okay, we'd like to move on. Approving the minutes for dated March 19th. In the packet, any edits?
Yes, thank you to Larry and to Dana. Just the officers listing was making sure that vice chair is reflected as Carissa Stribe under the board names at the top, and that would have corrected the absent name that I had listed below as Vice Chair Eckerin. So very simple, basic edits.
Is Carissa coming today? Does anybody know?
I've not heard from Carissa.
She hasn't checked in with me
I don't know.
as
Okay.
chair.
Just Misty.
Yeah. Misty did contact, Public Works did not contact the chair, but apparently she's not going to be making it today, so. Okay, is there a motion?
I would make a motion.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All right, then we'll vote. Approval?
Aye.
All right, unanimous approval of the March 19th minutes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump over the Colorado Department of Transportation presentation.
Did Gina confirm for 12:15?
She's running a little bit late, she contacted us, or, yeah,
Yep.
so,
Traffic is.
yeah, we wanted to go ahead.
That's exactly what it was, from the
I hear
CDOT
30
person
yeah.
traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
34's got some
Sort of,
pullbacks.
yeah.
Delayed by CDOT construction, most likely out there.
yeah,
Correct.
She's down by the big slide, or the
Go-kart.
go-kart
Yeah.
down there.
She may be there. When she gets here, we'll give her a couple minutes, so we can definitely
Yeah.
go to the MTP if you want.
yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So we're gonna go to the multimodal transportation plan and transit development plan update.
Yeah, so we had
Dana.
great discussion, obviously, last month about the plans, and, you know, we gave all that information to our consultant group, who gave us another revision, that we still found some items that we wanted changed. A lot of things that our team had gone through were kind of preferences, but some of them were related to style guide. Thank you, Lonnie, for getting that. Things like, you know, having the word avenue in certain places and AVE and others, and some of those kind of things. There were also some bigger issues that we found that we need to have them revise for us, related to some comments and things. And Greg put together a great synopsis of that for the MTP. And then I did a smaller one for the TDP. So they are working on another revision for us, I believe. We had a conversation with them internally about the scope of work in that plan, and a couple of things that we need to have them update, that we may end up having them give us an invoice for, or a cost estimate to make those updates in the plan. But for the most part, we believe that most of those revisions, they will just take care of as part of, you know, the original scope of work. So our plan is to take that to the town board, June 24th for consideration of adoption. So that being the case, the tab will have probably 2 more opportunities. We are hoping to get this obviously in the next, you know, month or so at least, so that we can give TAB another opportunity to review these and then come up with a comment letter in support, or just in comments, that we can then have available in our packet that we provide to the town board for that meeting on June 24th.
What's the date for that? The, our recommendation letter?
Well, it'd be great to get it at next month's meeting, or
Okay.
after next month's meeting, so that there's not a fire drill for because the timing of TAB is usually right before that meeting, and we have to submit our packets on that. Like
Right.
tonight, we have to submit our packet or the packet has to be submitted to, in public for the meeting next week.
Okay.
So always keep that in mind, that if it goes to that meeting of the same month, it's kind of a little bit of a fire drill. It requires a lot of work at TAB and submittal that evening. So the plan is hopefully to get that document to you with some advanced time, so that you can get time to put together your comment letter at the next meeting.
Okay.
I have a question to the
Yes.
group.
Okay.
Does TAB feel they need or want to go through the document again?
I don't.
The changes are not substantial. I mean, these
Okay.
are, I'll give you an example. There's an exhibit in there, a map that identifies intersections, and they're supposed to have a little symbol at all the signalized intersections. They have three of 5 of them marked and no legend. I mean, that sort of cosmetic minutia, I don't think
Okay.
changes TAB's view on the document. I was hoping that TAB may be in a position to discuss and formulate a position on the 2 documents today. Bill could draft a comment letter, bring it back to the next meeting, and you could vote on it. It doesn't seem a good use of your time to take another pass through a 100-plus page document to see what minutia details were cleaned up. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, our changes are very
Yeah,
small.
I
I just
think-
was in the image of, you know, giving you guys the full disclosure of what's happening with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are definitely smaller items.
Chair,
Yes.
last month, we each
Yeah.
gave Dana our feedback on the documents.
We did.
I don't need to go over that again,
Okay.
So you have that from last month, correct?
We do have that.
And I
we're-
haven't,
And we're already dealing with minutia
Yeah.
in the revised document, so I think, from my perspective, Dana could move ahead with the guidance he received last month.
I see it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dana has notes from the conversation.
Right.
What staff needs and what the board needs is a written summary of the TAB view on these documents. Does TAB support it, not support it, do you recommend adoption, or do you not? And so, if you could come to consensus on that position, give Bill, I guess, you could take new information from today or comments from last week, as everyone went around and shared, and summarize that. I think it's important, Bill, that you have an understanding of where the group stands, what the bullet points, what the content of the comment letter is gonna be. And TAB needs to see that in writing and vote on it, vote it up or vote it down.
So there was a suggestion last time that there might be like the Supreme Court, a majority view and a
That's what we-
minority
uh-huh,
view.
yeah.
And, yeah, I'd love to move ahead on that.
Did you happen to compile any of that? Do we have it for the group to talk about today?
we could, yeah, I have notes here from it.
But no draft document,
No draft,
okay.
because it was being delayed, so
Okay.
I didn't know what exactly was gonna be changed. And, I knew we needed a little bit more discussion about getting a note out for the bighorn structure, so we wanted to focus more on that. But it I could, majority, everyone, I don't think anyone disapproved of the plan itself. There were some details that we wanted to point out that were of, if that's correct. Okay, yeah. And if there's something, you know, the process, people commented about, they appreciated seeing all the comments from the public, and our responses to them, and that they were followed up on. Process also initially, how they put out the initial public engagement, having the public identify what they saw as issues and potential upgrades.
Well, if you have what you need,
The ranking criteria we discussed at length, and we appreciated it being flexible, and that was clarified, that was one thing, which I think is noteworthy to put in the paper, or the recommendation. Also funding, the fact there was a section on potential resources to tap into, so it wasn't just a, we want, you know, but actually a follow through. Let's see. One thing could improve upon is better outreach. That it still felt a little lacking, especially possibly from, different groups in the community. Maybe, for instance, Spanish speakers, also workers downtown, possibly have a little bit more of outreach to them, summer workers. Okay. Also, the plan was a little bit more auto-centric, even though it did go into detail of bike lanes and trying to improve those infrastructure. And what else do we have? That pretty much summarized. Anything else? Joan, you have a little look on your face. What else?
So, I just want to be sure I understand this. The concept, what you're asking for is a letter to the town board that says, either we support this or we don't support this, and this is why. Is that correct?
At a highest level, yes.
Uh-huh.
And with elaboration on what Tab's views were on the document. The supportive views and non-supportive views, if that's relevant.
So, the one thing that I've been very concerned about, is that there's that long list of 80 projects or so that are suggested, and some of them are clearly important, high priority, and some of them are clearly not. And to have a very clear statement somewhere, and I don't think it actually, I haven't seen the final, or close to final plan, that just because they're in the plan doesn't mean that they have been seriously considered, cost, benefit, positive, negative for the community. That, what am I trying to say? Just because they're in the plan doesn't mean we should go ahead with them. And I just want that to be super clear up front.
I hear what you're saying, but they did have like a tremendously detailed spreadsheet on, I mean, real detailed of costs and benefits and to whom and,
So the point of this is, that, well, I will take as an example the proposed, road that's part of the Elkhorn 2 expansion that would be going as a western connector and a new road. And because that road is in a master plan somewhere, the town is obliged to ask the developers to put that into their plans. And I think even ask for a public right-of-way. But it's not, but the real cost benefit to the community for that road and, trading off wildlands and wildlife habitat for this bypass, that cost benefit to the community hasn't really been seriously considered. I can always give a very specific example so that you know what I'm talking about. And there's a number of projects like that which might actually cause more problems than they solve. And so I just want to be really clear that somewhere in this document we have that kind of a caveat.
In the multimodal transportation plan or the letter of recommendation document?
I don't know if that letter of recommendation is going to die a death at the board meeting where they consider it, or if it will become incorporated as part of the final plan.
It will not be incorporated in the plan. It's an action recommendation from this group to the town board.
So it wouldn't do any good to be in the action recommendation if it's not in the plan, so that's.
well, we can say anything.
Yeah,
And
anyway.
just say, we like this and a
Or it
concern
was a
is.
shortcoming, that it was, this particular element was unclear, and the Transportation Advisory Board, hey Gina, go ahead and have a seat.
Okay.
No.
Joan, I hear what you're saying. The way I looked at it was that particular project that you mentioned was like a tier 3 low priority.
Right.
And a lot more vetting would need to be done, a lot more process, I think, in order for that to become a reality. So I guess that's how I looked at it, that it wasn't something that wasn't likely to happen anytime soon.
It's more of a kind of a thing on principle and theoretical, that once a project gets into a master plan anywhere, anyhow, and proposal, it takes on a life of its own, which I'm not fond of.
So I think the proper channel to address that concern is actually in the update to the development code. What does staff do and what does the town board do with content of master plans?
Beautiful, thank you, sir.
Because we can say what you proposed in the master plan, and it's illuminating, but it's not particularly guiding with respect to process. And I think you want
Yes.
the process to be broad enough that staff and the board and the community doesn't necessarily accept as gospel recommendations of any master plan, but they look at that as guidance and then they evaluate it in the current context of the issues of the day.
You say that so well.
And I think the development code is the place to make a revision of that sort.
Thank you very much. That really allays my concerns.
But you'll have to follow up and make sure that as we talk about that is not lost. Because those who are working on the development code do not have this information at their disposal. This group has it.
Yeah.
So Dana and I will, and Trevor will do our best as we get involved in the discussions on the development code to carry your comment forward. But as a citizen, please pay attention to that process and watch for it and reinforce your desire.
So, okay, so now
I was just gonna suggest that it's a 5-year plan, and those things that got ranked third tier are probably not happening next year. But those things that got ranked very high are likely to be happy with the 5-year plan. But if we bring something up 3 years from now, it should be reassessed as the plan gets older.
It's not so clean. I understand the philosophical view that you're sharing there. The ranking in there is interesting. It reflects a ranking process that's described in the plan. The reality is, nothing in the plan gets implemented until it gets moved into an objective in the town board's strategic plan for an upcoming year. And there is no concrete association with priority ranking and time.
Oh.
So really, when the content of the plan is evaluated by staff once a year, when we provide recommendations to the town board on projects for the upcoming year, we'll look at the priority ranking, absolutely. But the time to engage the community on the merits of any particular recommendation, it's kind of pointless until it's an objective and a strategic plan.
Okay.
Because right now, we have a goal in the strategic plan, implement the recommendations of this document. And then year by year, we'll look through which ones for this year, which ones for next year.
Except that Joan pointed out that it's part of a development proposal, which to me means that it could quickly rise to.
It could, and it would not necessarily bypass the public process, but it's a different public process.
Right.
Improvements constructed by a developer don't go through the same engagement that a project initiated by staff go through.
I have a question then, is there a way for TAB to be part of that process with Public Works? Can we have,
Formulating the objectives.
yeah, for development, for, development.
Oh, for There's a way to accomplish anything, I suppose. The current construct, though,
Yeah.
There's a chasm between land use applications and public works comments and TAB's involvement. They're not commingled under current construct.
How can we?
Having said that, our staff engages with TAB every month. We have a pretty good sense of what TAB wants to see and do and accomplish. And so we bring that perspective in our comments. That's as close as it gets currently. Now, do we want to modify the role of TAB and give TAB a voice, a review and comment voice on land use applications or infrastructure improvements associated with that? That's at the pleasure of TAB and the town board if you wanted to propose something like that.
Or maybe, can we
But at no point does TAB lose their opportunity to speak as citizens on any land use application. So, that's always underlaying all of this. You can always bring your voice and your concerns to any land use application as a citizen. But if there's a desire to speak with the strength of the advisory board, it would take a bylaws change.
Can we, have, maybe in our agenda, have, updates specifically, about development.
Land use
code.
applications
Yeah,
that have
they've come
an
through.
impactful transportation component,
Cause you guys are probably be tracking it more than any of us.
right?
And, can we add that to our agenda? Can
I-
that,
I think that has,
Yeah, I was thinking,
There.
does it make sense to have someone from that department come in? Well, yeah, we could do that.
it is public works, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
engineering.
that's not too negatively impactful.
So that
'cause
keeps
I know
you,
time-
that keeps you aware,
Yeah.
reinforces the public,
Yeah,
information sharing that comes out of ComDev.
right.
But it does stop short of providing a context for discussion and comment as a board.
Right, because we're looking at through a lens, and we're, that's what we do. And then, and also it would influence, recommendations. So, yes,
So, I don't know if there's anything specifically in the development code right now about, transportation infrastructure and matching, needs of a new development to the existing infrastructure, if there's anything in there about that.
There is,
But that might be something that we as TAB want to have input on, in the code redevelopment, to just look at it and make sure that it makes sense to us and doesn't need to be, something like that. And then,
well, we
and
could-
then I have no, I would withdraw all my objections to this prioritizing stuff in the recommendation, if we're thinking about this other piece of it as the development code and the transportation infrastructure and how they interact somehow.
okay. For time, I just wanna, we done with these kind of notes, Graham,
All that being the
Anything
case,
else?
do you feel like you have what you need to put together a
Have
draft?
is there anything that's missing? And another thing is, I'll write the first draft, a big draft, and then I ask editors, usually I, work with Larry and Linda, and then it will go on, once we've done that, then it'll go on a Google document, and then I'll share it out to the group. And that way you all can see it and, make comments on it. But I don't wanna have too many editors in the room. I think it's been very helpful in our process so far of, just let me focus, do it, and then get edits in there, and then y'all, can review what's missing and what you like. So, that'll be the process, and, look for that in the next few days, actually. So, and I'll check with editors on that. And, yeah. And certainly email me if something comes up after the meeting sometimes, so it might be delayed. Oh, forgot, so.
Sounds good.
Okay, everybody in agreement with that? Okay, awesome. All right, so Gina Fox, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Yeah.
And Gina, I bequeath to you the.
Ah, yes, thank you. Do you guys want me, where do you want me to stand or sit or?
Anywhere you want.
Half of you are facing
Yeah.
away from. Okay. So I have some notes, just in case I forget something. I'm in a bad spot.
At the computer,
Okay.
yep.
There we go. Okay, I'm Gina Fox. I'm a resident engineer with the Colorado Department of Transportation. May not mean anything to you. I'm a first level supervisor, so I have a team of engineers and technicians underneath me. And we were tasked recently with looking at State Highway 7, which I believe is St. Vrain. It's called St. Vrain here. But State Highway 7 just south of 36. And so we looked between First Street and Grave Street, and the purpose of this evaluation and study was to observe pedestrian and bicycle movement. We did look at traffic and single occupancy vehicle movement through the area, because it all commingles with bike and ped. And so far to date, we've collected counts. How long was the count? It was from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the Saturday during the Elk Festival. And then there is a school nearby, and we didn't feel like that was enough to really grasp what does a typical school day look like if the point is pedestrian and bike movement. So they went out actually last Thursday, it was supposed to be a really nice day, and they went and gathered new counts. We don't have that data today. And so the reason this slide is showing why the Elk Festival on a Saturday was a good day to try to get some pedestrian counts, other than, I know my audience knows that the Elk Festival is a high pedestrian movement. But these two tables, we don't actually have recording devices on State Highway 7, but we do on 36 and 34, so we took upstream, downstream counts. And we actually show that on Saturdays in the summer are some of the highest pedestrian movements. So we figured that's a conservative guess for our data collection of what that pedestrian movement would be on State Highway 7 for St. Green. And so then this is just some, take a step back, some crash information. Even though we're not really focusing on the traffic, the roadway, vehicular traffic will play into it. So we did look at what has happened over the past 10 years, and likely because speeds are slow, it does get congested, is likely why there aren't fatals, and it's not a really failing area as far as crash information. A lot of side swipes, that sort of thing. And so I'll just go through some of what we found on the bike counts. We found there was between about 5 to 10 cyclists throughout that day, which is enough that our recommendations will actually show some type of protected bike lane. And then our pedestrian, there was actually quite a bit of pedestrian crossing. I was recently doing a project on State Highway 7 through Boulder, and I think I only saw about 10 crossings a day. We had almost 140, so to give some magnitude, so just reiterated why we should be looking in this area and figuring out maybe if there's something else we need to be doing through here. Majority of the crossings were at the signalized intersection, which I believe is Manford.
Manford has a signal, yeah.
Yeah, so the majority of the crossings were there. There were quite a bit of mid-block crossings, so between the actual crosswalks themselves, there were about 33 mid-block crossings from about 1st to 3rd, and then from Comanche south. Quite a bit of pedestrian movement. And then we looked at traffic, mainly because if we do consider the redoing our typical section, how our roadway is laid out, just maybe try a restriping effort first, something feasible. What would that look like for traffic? And so one thing we showed on the right is existing, on the left is future, proposed through 2050 volumes. What we're showing is we're still having extremely acceptable levels of service with reduced lanes, through lanes. And so what typically, my background's more roadway drainage design, less traffic, but we design, especially at the state level, a level of service D is acceptable. So you got A, B, C, D, E. And so we're actually still seeing some A's and B's and C's, even with that reduced lane. So in 2050, so that's promising to having a feasible outcome in this area that we could actually do.
That level of service was based on link volumes, on peak hour traffic?
Correct,
Okay,
so.
Not delayed intersections?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
The only one that would show more delay, great question, was expected to be first. Yes.
So
As far as local
this
traffic.
is not knowing about school traffic, which is,
That's correct. This is, so the traffic data is taken through, that's 10 years of data, and then it's projected out as well. So, bless you. And then count data, so the actual foot traffic of the pedestrian counts, that is taken, that was taken on the Elk Festival. They did look at turn counts of vehicles as well, but it's,
Okay, let me just ask a question, because I didn't quite understand your answer.
Yeah.
So, there's a huge amount of traffic in and out of the schools there on weekdays. And-
is it Manford?
Oh, Community
Graves.
Drive,
Graves.
Madison,
Graves.
Graves, all over. There's just a huge amount of traffic for the schools. And so,
Local or on State Highway 7?
turning,
On and off, 7,
thank you.
yeah, on and
So
off,
the
7.
local access is what's seeing it.
Most of the kids are driven to school.
Yes.
There's some walkers, but most of them are driven by their parents, not on the bus, and dropped off. So the parents bring them from wherever they live around here and turn at Graves or at Manford, some of them, I think.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah,
And some on US 36 using Community Drive now
Yeah,
yeah,
because of the roundabout. It's
Yeah.
easier.
But anyway, so my question is, this projected to 2050, that's not,
With
That is not captured in any of this data, I don't believe, because they looked at traffic counts on Elk Fest, that was a
Uh-huh.
Saturday,
Yeah.
so we know that doesn't count these. The recent counts in April were pedestrian counts, I'm assuming they were not
Well, they're
vehicular.
cameras, so you can get all the vehicular.
So they
It
have,
just
it-
takes a video.
okay, are they gonna process the vehicular counts as well and
I
update all
will
these
double
charts?
check
or-
that, but yes, that would.
So if they captured the morning peak, was it 24-hour count, do you know? Did, probably got morning and afternoon?
They did the same hours, but they're primarily just going to look at when the school opens, when the school closes.
Because the morning peak is 7:30 to 8:30, something like that, for dropping off kids, and then the afternoon peak is what, 3:30?
3 to.
The school
Three
gets out
to-
at 3,
So,
yeah.
so it'd be 3 to
And
45
so that's,
minutes.
I know they were talking about I think it was 6:30 to 8:30, and then it was 2:30 to 4:30.
that should capture it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's probably value in having them look at the intersection delay component of this again with that April data,
Yeah, we can absolutely do
Okay.
that.
and then project that forward.
Do you
Thank you,
use
Greg.
other data, for instance, when their improvements were done for Graves Avenue, there was a survey conducted at the school district, questioning, one of the survey questions was, do your children walk or bike to school, and why or why not? And so they did give information on that, and is that usable, or is it you need it live? I mean, that was within 10 years. Is that past data?
I don't know that that's bad data to have, but this
Okay.
physically shows people.
Yeah, the need is there, it shows enough.
The traffic study would not customarily consider conjecture.
Okay,
Traffic studies are based on facts and observations as opposed to the opinions of parents regarding where their kids may or may not be in the future.
okay. I was just wondering, like, why there may not be even more kids out there.
It's a good philosophical
But it
question,
is philosophical.
but it's outside the context
Gotcha.
of an analysis.
Got it, thank you.
If there is past data, we can always just bring it up as a discussion point in the report.
Okay.
When it's done. And so then this is what I was getting after of if we were to do a road diet, just a restriping exercise. What would it look like as far as future level of service at the intersections, again on State Highway 7? And so these are just some of the recommendations. There's 3 different types of recommendations that came out through this study. And so before I go through them, I will caveat this with, it is a study, it's a recommendation. These all seem very doable, but they're not on a current list of projects over the next 2 years. Studies like this are actually what get them on our list of projects and get them on our future funding sources and pools, and we start putting money towards it. So if there's anything you see, now is a great time, like your comment about the traffic, ensuring that that's in there again. This is a great time to bring it up, and we can put it in this study, and then it can be implemented later. So the first one, since this was one of the locations, this was the location with the highest amount of traffic. We'll just go to the next slide. They even caught this on camera, and we have, I guess there was a few people who even stated to our traffic engineers or technicians out there at the time that people never stop for us in the crosswalk. Which I believe even the police up here have, or state patrol also confirmed, but we even have it on picture. So what ended up happening was the guy was in the crosswalk, and then the van really can't see him at all, and so he went off. Never stopped for the person in the crosswalk. So even though there is a crosswalk, it's not, and there's a rapid repeated flashing beacon, still not the safest movement. And so what they're recommending as a potential interim fix to the area is putting in some sort of median refuge. So that way the crossing distance is less and it brings more attention to the person in the middle. The other thing with median refuge is once you start putting medians in, the railroad does this all the time. It's called a traffic calming. It tries, once people feel a little bit tighter, they slow it down a little bit more. And so that would be the idea here.
To create the space for the refuge, we drop a lane, a through lane.
Mm-hmm.
Go from 2 through lanes to 1.
Yes.
Okay.
And then some of the other recommendations was that road diet where you drop the 2 through lanes down to 1. And that still had a positive level of service. The purpose for that more so is the bike, having a buffer for a bike lane. The only thing is there's a lot of access points, a lot of major driveways off of this, so now that is increasing cyclists' comfort and decreasing their awareness of what's going on. So that's something to consider as if we were to move forward with the road diet, is how do we want to make sure the cyclists are still aware of all these access points and all these drivers' potential sight distance and ability. No?
I noticed in, it was in Longmont, I took a picture of it even, of leaving a post office parking lot where there was a bike crossing. And at that, where you stopped at the driveway, there was alert to the vehicle that there is a pedestrian bike crossing in front of them. Is
Okay.
that something that is CDOT, or is that from the private property owner?
I'd have to ask. I know, I think some of it depends on, well, no, that would be a different type of agreement. I'd have to ask my traffic engineer.
Okay.
Who does that? Because even rapid repeated flashing beacons, even signalized intersections, sometimes that's just the local agency. Other times it's not. It has to do with the IGA between the locals and the state,
Okay.
typically. But I could find out for Estes Park.
If the bike lane's on the street, I've never seen a situation, maybe it's out there, if it's on the roadway,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to sign and put objects in the road to alert either the trail users or the cyclists about the presence of a crossing. It's more customary when the sidewalk or when the trail is detached behind the curb, because then you can put signs on the trail,
Sure.
or even facing the traffic that's crossing the trail and letting them know there's a trail crossing.
Yeah.
Very tough to do when the bike lane's on the roadway.
Then the last one that we looked at is, should we add crossings? Should there be any? Some of them were no, because there's current inlets in the area. Even though we did see mid-block crossings through there, there's the type R large inlets, the water's going in. There's a couple locations that were identified. If it's green, that means that's a potential for crosswalk, a new crosswalk. If it's red, there's usually some sort of conflict with something already in the area.
Gina, you mentioned something about bicycles, that they become comfortable perhaps if there's a sense of being protected from vehicles, and there are a lot of entrances and exits. With the number of pedestrian crossings on a state highway, is there any consideration for how comfortable pedestrians are becoming with a sense of being protected on a higher speed roadway where, I don't know what the alternatives are other than that, the bridge or the
Grade
tunnel.
separation or.
Unless there's a true barrier, just a crosswalk on a state highway feels like, and as careful as I am, sometimes people push that button and pop out so quickly that there's no consideration for a vehicle's physical inability to yield to their wishes.
Yeah, we
sometimes.
don't want to put a bunch of crosswalks across the state highway.
Yeah.
If we already have a location where it's signalized and they do funnel there, then that would be the ideal location to cross somebody. But what we notice is they're crossing, let's see, I think there were 66 crossings not at a crosswalk of about 140. So almost half of the crossings weren't at a crosswalk. So now, it's not necessarily just, do we look at putting in a new crosswalk? Maybe there's something else, we're looking at this right now at Mulberry and I-25 and Fort Collins of people keep crossing State Highway 14. Maybe there's something that needs to deter them off the roadway prism so that they actually go somewhere. Maybe it's a fence, maybe it's some type of bush even that has prickles
A
in it.
physical barrier.
Yes, a physical barrier.
Sounds like a deer crossing.
It's almost,
That's what
There's
envision.
wildlife crossing.
The crosswalks we have, are they at street corners?
yes,
Because the best research I've seen is that a mid-block crossing is far safer for pedestrians than a cross-street crosswalk because of the flying right and left turns that mean you're in a crosswalk parallel to the road you're on, and the person can't see you until they do their, hopefully, right turn on stop. But what we see a lot of people do is right turn on, slow down a little bit, and then cut that way. So for walkers, the mid-block one turns out to be safer and easier to see.
It's also the least expected crosswalk location for
Yeah.
a vehicle to see.
Yeah, so if we put one mid-block, it's like alarm bells go off, you see that's a big deal. You don't want them every block.
the one thing I, play devil's advocate on this one, having a mid-block crossing now changes all of the traffic operations. So now we have this multi-million-dollar signal that's backed up because of the mid-block crossing.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Assuming the mid-block crossing is not controlled, and so
Correct.
as soon as a pedestrian
Correct.
puts their foot in the crosswalk, the
Then you can
motorists
time
have
it.
to stop, and it disrupts the traffic flow.
Right, and some of them have a delay until the next cycle.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm looking at figure 15, and we've not talked about this specifically. This has come up time and time again with public comment in our meetings.
Oh, it's this one.
And this is the crossing at the Holiday Inn, I call it. I don't know what it's called. The Holiday Inn and the Mexican restaurant across the street. And I think, is that First Street there?
Where's that on the
It's not on
exhibit?
here.
It's hard to discern.
I think it's covered by the, key.
It's a terrible crossing. People use that all the time. People don't stop. Vision is impaired by people because of parkers along the highway. They are allowed to park right up to the crosswalk. To me, that's probably the most dangerous crosswalk I've ever encountered in this town.
Let's go back to that exhibit though, because the study looked at that.
That's what I,
And the
that's what I,
study took a position on that. So one of those has to be,
So this,
which one is it?
so this is Second, is it covered?
You can't see
It's
first on
covered by the
the
legend, I
Is
think.
there another?
Yeah, it's off the top of the figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the
It is.
right-hand figure, I see a
Second.
diagonal road coming up, is
The
that,
left-hand figure is the most
So-
northern portion.
okay, so that's, so they go tip to tail?
Yes.
Okay.
So this one,
First Street's not even on
this is
this.
second.
Yep.
So first is up here, it's covered.
Yeah.
Okay. The first is the,
So they're recommending a mid-block crossing between First and Second?
yes.
That's what the green,
Oh, good.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering.
so
what-
that,
Okay.
But if it would be at that hotel, because that's who uses that. If you move it up the street, the hotel people aren't gonna walk up the street to use it, is what I'm getting at.
You mean
Which side
between,
is the hotel on?
West side.
West side,
on your
And
left.
the,
Here.
American Legion's on the other side from it.
Yeah,
and the American Legion is there as well, which is a very utilized building too.
but there's also people going in and out from the, going on to
36.
36, and it's a lot of movement going on in there, so I could see why they would not wanna put a crossing there.
But it could be where it is, it's just needs to be convenient to that hotel where the bulk of your people are, why they're crossing that street there.
Right there.
And they're not gonna wanna walk 2 blocks south or a block south.
I believe, if I'm understanding your comments correctly, that you are affirming the recommendation of this study.
I hope so.
I
That's,
think
Study
so.
is showing a
So that's
mid-block
what it's-
crossing.
but how mid-block is it? It looks
That's
like,
right, at the liquor stores, Second Street.
but see, that's
Is it
another
north?
block away.
Yeah.
I'm saying these people aren't gonna walk that
They
far.
need to be north of it, she's
They
saying.
need to be north of there,
It needs to be between First and Second.
in the
And that's
middle of
where it
that
is,
shopping
between
center.
First and Second.
It's a little further south.
It's a little bit further south than what she's thinking, though, but.
Just off the driveway,
But make it.
Understood.
but up here, closer to the entry of the hotel.
Okay, all right.
Is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So further.
It wasn't clear to me on here, and,
Yeah, it's
the street isn't on here, but this has moved it quite a bit way south. This is south of the event center there as well.
No, it's not.
Wasn't that the event center?
Well, I
Yeah.
think where you're
Oh, the
proposing to
hotel.
move it is where
The
the
hotel event
conflict
center.
arrows are. If you move it
So-
Oh,
north,
I
then
see
you
what
go
you're
into
saying.
those
Yeah,
those
then you're in all the
conflicting
turns.
arrows.
yeah, no, you don't wanna go up there.
Which is why it would be located between those conflict movements, and then you could have a potential for a median refuge as well through there. So, the left turn into here would be striped and have a median, and then the left turn here, and then, left. So it's in between conflict points, but you're thinking even further north.
Right.
Closer to
The
36.
recommendation from this group is slide that image down and show.
Show even further.
Show where
the
First
conference
Street is,
center
yeah.
And put this really in line between the conference
between
center
other
has an
conflict points.
entrance and an exit,
Yes, it does, yeah.
and so.
If it is there, I mean, there is a crossing there, and it goes to where the
It's
hotel
north of it, though.
is. My feeling is leave it there and make that the crossing. Granted, that's where First Street is, but that's gonna get used, it's just the same old thing, you make sidewalks on a college campus, but that doesn't mean people are gonna use them, they're gonna take the most expeditious route. And they're not gonna walk south and then do the crossing and then walk back north if they could have just shot across the highway.
Especially a hotel where the people staying there don't know there's a crosswalk a half a block or a block away.
So that's where my question is. So is there gonna be a median in there, a refuge?
Refuge.
There
is
could
shown.
be, that would be a recommendation.
There
Is
should
that-
be.
Cause just even throughout that stretch, have y'all considered just having a median?
The whole way.
All the way through with turn options going in
And
to
that's
break it up.
That's essentially,
And-
so the only issue with that is all of those access points, which is why they call them medium refuge. So if you do see here, wherever there's green, that was a good place for a crosswalk option, basically. And so if you see in the green, there's a little black oval. fish
Yeah.
looking. That would be median refuge, so a lot of the time,
Okay.
in order to keep it, either we remove access points if we were doing median all the way, which we could do, I don't know that we want to, cause then we have to figure out other ways for people to access. But basically so now we're getting into geometry of how long does it take to decel to get over into your lane. Eventually all that starts backing up and we start blocking access points, that are there today. So if the thought is, which basically ends up being just median refuge after a little while.
And I think the presence of a built-up median, I think people will see it and they will choose to go to a safer crossing.
Yeah,
And when they know and it's visible, because right now you cannot see anything on the road, you know. You don't really necessarily know there's a crosswalk. And so anyhow, the more there, you know, with maybe some plants, some presence of, you know, to the motorist as well to the pedestrian, I think it will help them locate it and cross safely. Greg, you were gonna say something, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna point out that if you put in a median, you take away all the left turns in both directions, if a continuous median. So you have to balance that adverse impact to all the users that are accustomed to going to these businesses on the right and the left.
Okay.
It'll
So
just put more traffic on your local roads.
So now, you're gonna move those left turns up to the next break, which is gonna be the street intersection, so now the motorists are gonna U-turn to come back
It would be
and get to their
U-turn.
destination.
Right,
So that's an offsetting consideration.
okay.
Another thing is if we take this existing crosswalk and move it from First Street and move it south to the front of the conference center, there's parallel parking on the east side of the road.
Right.
And so Linda was talking about pedestrians stepping out behind parked cars. There's better sight distance at the intersection at First Street than there is if we move this mid-block. And so, if we're gonna advocate for a mid-block crossing, when we're concurrently and unintentionally advocating for the removal of parallel parking on either side of that, because you have to open up the sight lines for that mid-block crossing.
Can't do
So now you're gonna piss off the business owners that are adjacent. So there's always these offsetting
Yeah.
considerations. It's like squeezing a balloon. You make it fit, this part fits and then the rest of it goes big. So
Yeah.
there's offsetting impacts when we start diddling with these changes.
Can we reduce the parallel parking, but have it, maybe not have the whole stretch, but can they have
Sure,
like two or
I mean,
three
there's-
where people can
I
load
mean, you're
and
going
load?
way down into the minutia here,
Well,
and this is a
maybe.
high-level study.
That's okay.
Yeah,
So,
I'm taking notes.
so what I hear that I like is that, there's a crosswalk at First and a crosswalk at Manafort, that were heavily used. And then there was a bunch of jaywalking between.
Yeah.
And that's what, 4 or 5 blocks? And there's a suggested, new crosswalk, basically halfway between First and Manford. I forgot exactly where it is.
well, between Second and Manford too.
But there's one,
only one, between second and third,
yes,
that's it.
and.
That's a long way.
Yeah, and so if we have those 3 crosswalks, one at First with a refuge, and one at Manford with a refuge, and one in the middle with a refuge, then pedestrians can see where those are, and even if they're tempted to jaywalk, they might actually take the trouble to use them, because they look so safe and attractive. So that's what I see.
So not so spread apart between the one, between second and third and the one at,
Can you go back to the slide that has
Manford?
the existing, the recommended?
The recommended new ones, yeah, or the possible new ones, excuse me.
So there's
it's
one,
hard because
two,
there's a lot of,
3,
business.
4, there's 5 locations deemed as low conflict in this study area, the 5 green locations.
I'm seeing the one between Second and Third is halfway in between.
Well, you're seeing it, and the traffic engineer looked at those and said, not a good idea, look at the red and the blue, because of the vehicular conflicts.
No, I'm looking at the green one that's halfway in between second and
She's
third.
looking, I think the second green one direct on the top, this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just north of Third Street.
yes, thank you.
Gina, are these also gonna be designed for pedestrians, but also cyclists to cross? Like, my question's coming from 4th Street. There is a significant, infrastructure on 4th Street that is cyclist and pedestrian oriented. And when they get to Highway 7, they're kind of like, good luck, there's nothing there.
Oh, I see, Fourth
So-
Street itself
Fourth
has
Street-
bike
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and so there's not any kind of communication between those two roads. And also the sidewalk is buckled, narrow,
I mean,
dangerous.
from roadway design perspective, if we create any type of sidewalk or bike, we have to tie it in somewhere. So we're always looking at how does it tie in, so every access, everything, we have to look at that, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I could definitely make sure, at least something, maybe trying to keep the same type of feel of Fourth Street could help as well. That's what you usually call it, corridor feel.
The town of Estes Park got, or Public Works got, an award for that design.
Okay.
And, I know the community has longed for connection on both ends of it, on Highway 36 as well as Highway 7, that is functional, so that would be
That's
wonderful.
good to know. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
double check that typical section
Yeah.
and see.
Is this your last slide, or do you have more?
That was it, yeah, I think,
Was there a typical section in the study for the road diet?
yeah, I wrote it out.
Oh, in words instead
Yes,
of not
sorry.
interactive, okay, that's
So
fine.
it's the first bullet there. The outside lane to 6-foot bike lane
Yeah.
between First and First.
We have to put some thought into that idea and how it would interact with the parallel parking between First and Second.
I think
Because
some
we're
of
gonna have parallel
those
parkers
were
crossing
moved.
that, or we put the bike lane up against the curb and put the parking up against the travel lane.
And there was,
That's dangerous.
yeah. Just have to look at that buffer.
I've
And
seen
maybe
it.
that's
Potentially
probably a
removing
design
them.
detail, not a study detail, but.
I think I read it in this. There was something with the parallel parking, I remember that. Let me break down to make sure we double check that.
And at First Street, Linda was correct, there's, that parallel parking goes almost right up to First Street. There's no space for visual. If you're on First Street and you're
But you're facing west,
Highway 7,
yeah.
and if you want to take a left or right, you can't,
You
there's,
can't see.
yeah, there's a car blocking, so
You have
there's
about
no,
Distance
20
issues.
or 25 feet of red curb, but
It-
it's not significant.
not enough.
No,
Yeah, because I lean out. Your car has to go out to see, and then if there's a cyclist or,
Then you'd be in there.
we sit in that restaurant there where that crosswalk is and watch the people that try to get across.
At first.
Yeah, yeah.
Larry?
In general, I really like the idea of a road diet, but not here. And as a cyclist, there's so many conflicting driveways. You look in front of Park Supply, and people can just park right off the roadway. And I can travel the speed limit on my bike, particularly heading north. And I think of cars looking for a gap. Now there's only one lane for them to find a gap. And looking for the gap and not seeing me on a bike coming at 30 miles an hour and pulling out right in front. In this location with all the conflicts, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it would be for some cyclists would be more hazardous. That's my opinion.
So share the road more, and that's downhill, northbound?
There are sharrows there
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and maybe we need to share the road, some share the road signs.
But what do you think about the southbound? Should that be,
Well,
or just
to me,
eliminate
the
it all?
southbound is where there are the most conflicts
Yeah.
with,
Okay.
Park Supply,
The
with,
businesses,
There's
yeah,
restaurants there, 2 restaurants
yeah,
there.
there's, yeah,
Brewery
restaurants,
further up
the
there.
little shopping center north of Comanche. There's just so many turning conflicts. I just, it's not, that is the most uncomfortable place. I have, it's like my spidey sense has to constantly be alert because of all the turning movements. And a good friend of mine was seriously injured when a car pulled out in front of her. And I think cyclists would feel more comfortable in a refuge lane, zipping along, and someone's gonna pull out. It doesn't feel safer to me.
Removing on-street parking, would that make it?
What I could see by the liquor store at Second Street is if that on-street parking were pulled further away from the intersection, because it blocks the view. You're pulling out on Second Street, it's very hard to see north because of cars that park right there. And if it's really busy, there are cars parked south of Second Street. And so the visibility at that intersection is particularly challenging for motorists.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And there are people who drive on 7 to get south in a big hurry. And there are other people looking for their turn. And those are, even though there are no pedestrians or bicyclists, that is a conflict area between people who want to get through and out of here and the people who are looking for one of those turns. If we take away the slow lane on either side, that would be good to slow down all the traffic, which might be an objective.
I just had a brainstorm. One of the reasons why First Street crossing is so challenging, people who are heading eastbound on 36, they turn onto Highway 7, and because that lane ends, granted, it's a ways up the road, but people, I
They
do
still
this.
get over.
I look over my left shoulder, see if someone westbound on 36 is coming up 7, because I want to get over. So I move over pretty quickly, and the pedestrian crossing is right there, and people aren't necessarily looking for that. What if you could not blend into traffic until you were further, so we would take some sort of a median, so that you would not be able to move into the inside lane until you were beyond that
Make it more of
pedestrian
a
crossing.
protected right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
that could help.
a possibility.
Well, if people are looking behind them, they're not looking at pedestrians in the
Right.
crossing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep, their head's the wrong way.
So it catches you, but it can catch you by surprise if you're southbound, if there's a pedestrian there.
And we have to assume on Elk Fest, half of our drivers don't remember last time they drove that corner in Estes. Maybe more. You know, like, we kinda know that corner if you go it once a week or once a month. But people from out of town are even worse with, how do I merge here right before a crosswalk?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Protected right.
Have you all looked at, also just, or considered more of a bike lane barrier, you know, on 7, where, you know, if you're losing the parking, parallel parking, that there actually could be a barrier for a bike lane and curb.
Like a curb with an actual, or just a curb.
Yeah, to have a distinct separation between road and then a bike lane.
No, we have not looked at that. I know from a snow plowing effort, if we do that, it would truly be separated and we would not be plowing that bike lane.
The bike lane.
That would be, now a local agency would have to come through and plow
Okay.
it.
They do, yeah, maybe that could be a consideration for the town.
Yeah, but, you know, 80% of us bicyclists, we don't expect to have the snow plow done on any sidewalk or bike trail.
I do.
We wait till it gets noon and the snow is melted.
I don't.
And then it turns to ice.
Then it turns to ice in the afternoon on the way home, yeah.
Because I think our town does incredible,
Oh, they do.
They do an
They do.
amazing job on this.
clearing all our sidewalks. I mean,
Yeah.
even along Highway 7, the gravel
Yeah.
path. So, I mean, what's adding a little more, I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I don't see, I could be wrong, and obviously, I'm just me, but it just, I would hope that it would be at least considered,
Yeah, we can,
you know,
that's,
protective
and
bike lane.
going back, we can definitely put that in there as a consideration. It won't change any of the outcomes of where should the crossings
Right.
be, but, or we should have a bike
Okay.
lane. That's more the details once you actually get the money to do the project.
Okay,
But we could absolutely write it in here that the town of Estes would be interested in,
maybe,
yeah,
at least consider it,
Curb.
because they already
some
are
of the
plowing,
separated bike path.
yeah.
Or maybe it's just extended shoulder, but there's curb in there.
So what Larry said about coming down the hill on your bicycle, I mean, you are going 30 miles an hour, and if the speed limit there is 25, you're already breaking the speed limit. And so the bicycles do not need or want a dedicated lane on the downhill.
But on
they
the
do
uphill,
on the uphill, you definitely do.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe, I mean,
Maybe.
I ride it both ways, and I
Yeah.
prefer to be, because people are all over the place, and especially if you're a parent, and you have a child who's trying to bike to school, I think the more barriers between a vehicle lane and a bike lane, the better, even if it's the flappies. But a cement one, I think would, but I hear you.
okay,
It
so
can go.
that's
I
good.
totally hear what you're saying.
Larry and I will be out in traffic, and the school kids can be in the bike lane, and it'll be fine.
well,
Exactly, and me
Yeah.
too, if I, okay, I wanna do the bike lane,
but
yeah.
there's a principle for all of our consideration of bicycles and sidewalks, that on the uphill, the difference in speeds is enormous,
Yes.
and we need more protection. On the downhill, the difference in speed might even be negative. You could be going as fast as the cars, and, you know, you got your eyes up and you're ready to coast past whatever it is. So if we only got one side to have a bike trail, as a general principle in Estes, I want the uphill side to have the shoulder or trail.
If we were to do the bike trail, I would think we'd still want both sides with the school nearby.
Yeah.
That would be my
Exactly.
only thing. Of the crash history, there were 2 cyclists that did get hit and they're both under 18. They're
Oh.
both minors, but within the past 10 years, 2 cyclists got hit and they were biking in the wrong direction and they were, they're both, I didn't write it up
There's
there.
also quite a few people who live on Graves Avenue and who need access, safe access, even through the night, you know, to downtown. And, there's more VRBOs, people using alternative
Oh.
transportation, so, in the neighborhoods, and so, yeah, I hope that you all don't totally neglect the option to
Oh, yeah.
having a barrier,
Yeah,
or
no,
whatever designated,
we can definitely.
but as an option. Anything else, y'all?
I always think it's a great idea to spend the paint.
Yeah,
Before you do the concrete digging up and
Paint's a great way to
replacement.
just test.
And after you paint what you're going to later do with concrete, we sometimes discover that it wasn't a good idea. And we also have black paint available, I understand. And we can decide, that seemed like a good idea
You
to,
mean gray?
gray, okay, yeah.
Charcoal.
But when I wanna buy it, the lead paint only comes in yellow and white. But, I know the state has a source for gray.
So, yeah, any other things you need from us?
Thanks,
Gina,
Gina.
you've been
No, this was very
amazing.
helpful.
Thank you.
I'll get back with my team and bring the comments to them, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Appreciate
making
you.
time.
Where was the?
We're sorry I was late, somebody really needs to fix
We
this
got- we
third
were-
floor.
Where was the
Construction.
lead-in picture taken? I am racking my brain trying to figure
This,
out.
this one?
No, the very, your,
Oh, I think that's actually Park County. I think it's
Oh.
near.
I
Is that
think-
43?
where
I thought it
is
was
that?
43.
I thought, so it's the closest one that I have in our stock images for the state
yeah,
that
you're
looks
right.
like Estes Park.
Oh.
But I'm pretty sure it's
Busted.
down.
We're gonna
near,
annex
like,
that.
Okay,
Maybe near South Park type area.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it's flipped.
I agree.
Where is that?
That is
That's like
hilarious.
closest Estes Park. I'm allowed to change them, but I'm
Kinda
not really
looks
good
like
with all the
Melbourne.
ADA
Yeah,
stuff
it does.
for PowerPoints just yet.
It's great.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thanks,
Of course,
Gina.
coming up.
Yeah, and we'll,
So
I'll get you
appreciate
guys the report in the next draft form and keep you updated.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want the surveys from the big one?
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we're gonna move on then, let's see. Bighorn parking structure design, and there will be a position letter that I'll be putting together. And so I did like a brain dump, looking at over years of parking and, the conversations that TAB has been part of, and also the town board passing, like the downtown parking management plan in 2018. So anyhow, I put an outline of just some ideas that would be in, but I also feel like the cons really need to be fleshed out. And, because I think not everyone, I'm not sure what everyone's view on the Bighorn parking structure design.
And the big picture of this is, Sharon Morris and I talked about this a week or so ago. We are taking to the town board at the April 22nd meeting a resolution for the design contract for the Bighorn parking garage.
That's next week.
That's next week, yeah. So that's the reason for the little bit of a fire drill today, is to put all this together so that we can have this letter in the packet, hopefully by the end of the day today. We could submit it later, obviously, supplementally, as an add-on to the packet, but that was kind of the thought process with that, so that we'd have that letter, comment letter, or support, or however you want to formulate that, available to the town board as part of our packet. So, Sharon Morse went through and put some things together based on, I think, the history, just like she said, and some of the things that we heard, she and I had talked about that will be in the memo that goes with this, and that memo should be out again this evening when the packet is available to everyone. But the highlights and a lot of the big points are in this little note that she put together with the, I can't read that right now, 6 or 7 different bullet points, just to get this started. Ask it.
So is this the 4-story thing we were talking about with the penthouse suites on top and the roof garden, or is this a 2-story?
That is an awesome question. So what we're doing, what we're taking to the board as part of the design for this, the design component is 2 levels of parking, and then they're going to design additional, they'll put a design together for the residential component.
The design meaning not the 4th deck, but rather sufficient structural capability in the,
To add it
in
later.
the structure so that it could be added later if a future board wants to take that action.
So either a third deck of parking or,
It's ground plus two.
So add.
Ground-
gotcha, okay.
Ground plus
Three.
two,
Three.
and accommodation for a fourth, or ground plus three, sometime in the
Yeah,
future.
got it, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the ground plus two has no internal up ramps or down
Correct.
ramps?
Correct. Access to levels 2 and 3 come from Bighorn.
And how many parking places is that altogether?
It would add, we're thinking, I don't have the design, so I can't tell you based on, but we were thinking 44 per level.
Wow.
Yeah, so that would add about 88 more to inventory, if it all works.
Yeah, I see it a little differently. I see it as an addition of about 40, because, so the ground, the 40 on the ground level
Are already there,
are already there.
okay.
The next level up mitigates the loss of spaces off of Cleve,
Oh,
Whether they were striped or not.
striped or not. And then the second elevated level would be new capacity.
so part of the reason for the garage is to make up for the loss of the cleave.
That's,
But you
yes.
lose parking on Bighorn too, for the access into the garage.
We're gonna
Not,
lose some
not
there.
really, the access is
Yeah, there's some parallel in there.
Yeah.
Yes, we would,
on both sides,
Nope.
just the one
just the
side.
entrance side.
So there's not that much on that side.
Okay.
Could I offer my experiential observations from the last 2 or 3 years, whatever, when the loop was constructed and finished? I live on Bighorn, we walk down there and back several days a week. That street is used a whole lot more than it ever was before, and I thought it was, people were avoiding the construction. They've learned it's a quick way to get down there and get out of town or go around the roundabout. It's become a convenient thing. I'm glad to see that the sidewalk extension is on here because that is the conflict that I see on Bighorn. And I've talked about this before. It was kind of a desire, but now I think it's a need. There are some sections of the sidewalk completed on the southwest side of Bighorn, but not very many. But I think that would be definitely important to,
Please understand that is outside of the outside of this conversation.
but it's on here, that's why I was
Yeah.
glad that it was included.
You
And
don't
I'm
think we
not
should add
sure
that?
that you wanna say, well, we like the project or we hate the project, and by the way, you should do this other project.
But I'm just saying, I like that it was included on here,
Understood.
So.
because I do
should-
see these conflicts more and more now.
Wouldn't it, the third level up there would make sure the sidewalks are intact though?
Adjacent to the parking structure, yes, but not off-site to Wonderview.
Okay. But maybe we could reference, like, we see a higher vision of, which aligns with the comprehensive plan and the master.
You can put whatever this board wants to put in it. I'm suggesting you simplify it and focus on the
Yeah.
question at hand, as opposed to
Only through
expanding.
Of the structure,
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
structure.
So what is the question at hand
What is-
precisely, now that I
Does this,
understand
does
what
this,
the
does this
proposition is?
board support the town board approving the design for this parking structure?
We already have the
Not
design?
the design, you
or-
mean,
Does the board support, does this board recommend that the town board fund the design for the parking structure?
Fund the
We
design,
do not have the design yet.
right,
all right.
That's the action on the 22nd.
And so this kind of fences in the design, and we're gonna send to architects to do that, to give us back a design.
I'm sorry?
I mean,
to fund the
at this
design.
point, we're only funding someone creating the design.
Correct. That's the question for the town board on the 22nd.
And
Well,
the,
we're affirming that the town board move forward with
yeah,
this.
and I
Should they or
think
should they not? That's the question.
the con that's not here, that I think needs to be in that list, is if we were about to cancel all the revenues that come from parking next fall, we may still wanna have a design for a garage, But I certainly hope we're not gonna build one without any future revenues to help pay for it.
That's fair, that's logical, yeah.
And it kind of belongs in the consideration, and probably when we make a evaluation of paid parking in the fall, it should be on a time frame that would allow that revenue to contribute to paying for this extra facility. And then, the other con, is really listed there in the construction disruptions, delays, and business tolerance, but there's another one that concerns me. Being this is my first year on TAB, it feels like almost everyone going to Rocky Mountain National Park still drives through the middle of town and goes in Beaver Meadows. And we have a bypass that nobody coming from 34 or 36 apparently is aware of or takes advantage of to go to the park.
And they have 3 new entrance kiosks.
Well, 3 may not be enough, but my
It's as many as
concern,
they have at Beaver Meadows.
yeah, okay. But my concern is, currently, there's like a bypass and a shortcut to go straight to the park, and hardly anybody uses it. So if we have a parking garage that requires you to take the bypass and come back into town from the park direction,
From Wonderview, is that what you're talking about?
in the design of this, garage that's on the other side of town from the way everyone comes to town, we gotta have a traffic plan that will get people to do that. And I don't wanna build a garage that no one goes to.
Yeah, that's,
And I don't know at what point that goes in the
I don't
design.
think that's gonna be a problem. Two-thirds
Well,
of it's already filled.
So maybe, so this would, the better access would be Wonderview for those accessing Rocky Mountain National Park on Highway 34. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is, currently, there's a great bypass already built on Wonderview. You can avoid downtown, you could get to the park. I don't see it being used anywhere near as much as people creeping through past me to go in the other entrance. As part of the design of this garage, there should be a plan to get people to go that way. If I were driving up here from down, in Longmont or Loveland, when I get to Estes, it would take something to get me to know to go around the town and approach it from the other side.
Yep.
No one coming out of Rocky Mountain National Park is going to say, oh yeah, I'll just stop in the garage on my way back to the Front Range. So, as part of the plan, to build it where it's gonna be on the other side of town, we're gonna find a way to get people to go there.
I
During
think there's
high,
a very
would be
loose
incorporated
tie
into the
with
plan.
trying to get folks to use the bypass. I kinda see the connection, but I think it's a very tenuous one. I think it's something that would be important regardless of
Yeah.
this parking garage or not.
Whether or not we have a garage, we still should have a way to get people to go that way.
Wally, during high season, they park up Bighorn, they park on Wonderview by Bighorn. It's not like people don't know that's a way to get into town. It's very well used during the summertime. So I don't think we'd ever have an empty garage in the summertime, I promise you. There.
Is that your concern, that it would not be used?
Well, my concern is that the design is not gonna suggest a free building. It's gonna be kind of expensive to build. And so I wanna make sure that it is used
Sure, right.
and that we have revenue to help pay for it.
So you'd like me to add in, we're aware that funding, would be reliant on the revenue coming from paid parking.
Well, in the cons,
future,
that
and the-
paid parking is under, NFL.
Underpriced.
No,
Yeah.
under NFL overtime rules right now, we're thinking about it suddenly dying next fall. and that would be our source of paying for it.
Well, we vote on that every year. I mean, that's something that just happens every year, every fall.
And the majority of the town board approved it every year, in fact unanimously, but not recently.
Yeah,
Does this distill down to a concern of spending $500,000 on design when construction funding's not identified? Or is
Yeah.
that not the issue?
Reliable.
yeah, that's,
Liable.
yeah.
Well, it's just not identified at all.
Yeah, right, cause it's, well,
And it doesn't have to come from paid parking, there's a variety of ways to fund the
But
construction.
and I'm not completely opposed to designing a facility before you finalize the funding for it. Because you can't finalize it till you know the exact design and how much it's gonna cost. But in the process of design, somebody should be looking a little bit ahead to the funding and the way to get it to be used.
That's been discussed in every conversation with the town board on this.
Okay,
on
so
this
that really the
subject.
board is
There's-
addressing
there's-
that.
There's no surprise on the loose end associated with funding.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
so I don't know if that was your concern, or if your concern was the need for additional wayfinding signage to get motorists to the parking structure. Because that's also addressed in our wayfinding plan. So
okay,
we've got, I think we have both your concerns covered.
all right. There,
yep. All right, moving on. Then, okay, look for a Google Doc coming your way for you guys to go over the details of this letter that would be then submitted to the town board. So,
I'd like to clarify
Yeah.
expectation here.
Okay.
So we have to have this to the town clerk's office today in advance of their 5 o'clock release of the packet, if we
Okay.
want it in the packet. So it's coming up on 2 o'clock. Is there gonna be 2 hours of active back and forth via email to create a final document?
For the parking
For this
structure.
item?
I didn't know
Can we
the
have it as a
time
late
on it,
submittal?
so I didn't
Or,
realize it was.
that's if we want it in the
Today.
packet. The other option is it can be submitted up till 5 o'clock on the 22nd. A paper copy can be given to the clerk's office, and then they can pass that out to the trustees. That's option 2. Option 3 is it's brought to the meeting and read live during the public hearing. So there's 3 different ways to get this board's opinion to the town board.
I prefer it in the packet.
But I
And just
think it
have a
has to get
simpler.
voted on and approved.
Well, yeah. So the best that the TAB has to react to is this outline. Is this board willing to support the chair crafting a memo that generally contains this information, puts it in final format, and it gives it to Public Works for inclusion in the town board packet? It's a bit awkward to ask you to approve something that's not in final form, but.
If I may suggest something, in my previous role in Wisconsin, I was liaison to a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee. And when we had scenarios like this, where it was kind of a time crunch to get a letter of support from the advisory committee, staff would prepare the memo or the letter of support. It would become a discussion item, and board members were able to review and comment on it. The revisions were made live, it was voted on, and then it was included. Is that something that is feasible moving forward for this group?
I suppose it's, it puts Bill in an awkward position of pulling this up and actually fine tuning it right now.
Before 5 o'clock that we all approve.
Which
Before 2 o'clock when we didn't.
I would spend the rest of the afternoon finishing out, but I
Just
just,
a suggestion.
Well, it doesn't have to be a
I
lengthy
think
letter.
Not for today.
I don't think it has to be as length as this, I don't think we have to give as much background.
No.
I was concerned because there did seem to be some pushback of legitimacy about whether or not.
It can be
parking-
it can be a 1 or 2 sentence
Yeah,
memo.
yeah.
The
So,
Transportation
yeah.
Advisory Board supports or does
Yeah.
not support
Okay,
the award of the contract for the Bighorn parking structure design.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
It could be that simple.
okay. Because we have addressed some of the cons, some of your concerns.
Well, and as Greg said, those are all part of the board discussion on how that's funded and.
And
But sometimes,
even if those cons exist for building the garage, they may be overwhelmed by the value of having it designed before we make those final determinations. You know, my concerns are about building the garage, not about having it designed before we build it.
right, and right now, they just need to know if we support
Having it
funding
designed.
a design, and it can be implemented when it can be implemented. But at this point, is it worthy of a design that's, yeah.
Just going
So I think
forward.
it's pretty simple, and then I think there's a history that I'm sure the town board by now is aware of, you know, that there are these different plans, you know, the parking, downtown parking management plan. And, yeah. So that they need a reference of the community support of expanding or parking, that it is there. So, I think it can be really simple. I think you're right.
So do we need to vote?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would move
there you go,
that
thank
we
you.
have Bell write a little 2 or 3 sentence memo that we support the design,
The
The
funding of a
Bighorn
consultant.
parking garage design.
yes,
Okay, go ahead.
I second.
that's my motion.
Okay. Second. All right. Any discussion
have a
about it?
second.
More discussion? Anything?
We have a second, so we have a
Second. Got
motion
the
and a
second,
second on the table.
Any other discussion about it then? All right, then voting then? In favor of the motion and unanimously? Supporting the motion, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That helps us.
Okay, parking and transit updates.
Okay, I'll do this real fast, cause 2 hours seems like a long time and then it's nothing.
At the other edge of town is
That's
better
for
than.
sure. So, 2 items for discussion at the town board meeting next week. We're gonna discuss the parking ordinance updates. That was the one where we were gonna clean up 10.04 relative to some parking prohibited items and talk about parking prohibited overnight. Director Mahonen's gonna help me with that one. The other item is a policy 842 updates to permits relative to overnight parking. That's the one where some of the commercial loading permits are parking vehicles during the day and night, and we just wanna talk to the board about that. We did talk to them at a study session, and they were amenable to us bringing both of these items to them for discussion and a vote on the resolutions or ordinance at this next meeting. We are also on this next meeting having a discussion, Town Administrator Mahalik is bringing it up to the board, the, idea to change the name of the post office lot to Baldwin Park, which puts it more in line with the rest of our locations, which are based on landmarks or something similar instead of a business or something. All other aspects of the program for the 2025 season will remain the same as they were for the 2024 for parking, same rates, same locations, times, they're all gonna be the same. Okay? We talked about the Bighorn parking structure. Transit, busing to Estes is again coming this year. That will start on Memorial Day weekend. Same thing, $15 round trip. They're gonna have 2 backing out buses. Those start at the Union Station and go into Rocky Mountain National Park with a stop at the Visitor Center. Shuttle routes. This one I had a picture of. We're making some adjustments to the shuttle routes. I'm being a little preemptive, but the transit development plan had the idea to have the red route kind of go up around where, near the Stanley Hotel, the Spire at Stanley. So in the interest of, and this prohibits the vehicle from having to make a left out of the visitor center parking lot. So we're gonna have 3 of our routes now. Let me look at them again. The gold, the brown, and the red. The red is the trolley. Make that right-hand turn out and then go up and around Aspire at Stanley Parkway and then come back into town. on their route. And then the office, we added another stop kind of across from, it's near Baldwin Park, just past the loop, kind of across from where Snowy Peaks Winery is. There's a couple of parking spaces there that were put in, and we're gonna have them do some striping on that for us that will allow us to have a transit stop there as well. And that should serve that upper area of Moraine, because there's not a spot for us to pull over there because of the bike lanes and the increased traffic that is going toward the loop. And then we can also serve the gondola from there, or the tram.
Good idea.
I forget what it's called. So those are a couple of the changes that we're making for transit this year. Real fast, the CMAC IGA, that is also going to the town board on a consent item this next week. It's the meeting all about parking and transit, the meeting on the 22nd, it feels like. They have a lot of things on there, and this will be on consent for the CMAC grant. This will allow us to expand operations and talk about those pilot programs that we've discussed in the past, relative to regional transportation, expanding hours, and putting systems similar to Where's My Bus on the trolley and the shuttle system during this year. We're not gonna be able to get to everything we wanted this year because of the timing that they released this grant, but we have them extending it through 2026 season as well, so that will help us a lot. The zero emission vehicle fleet transition plan, we've talked about this a little bit. We had a in-person technical workshop with some other transit operators like RAPPDEV, Rocky Mountain National Park was there, our internal power and communications division, and the school district were there, all interested in zero emission vehicles for transit. Got some good information for the consultant group on that. They already sent me a technical memo. We'll have one more session with them, and then we're gonna put this out to the public, most likely in a series, you know, where the public can comment on it and show what the plan looks like. And that should be in most likely May or early June, and they're gonna try to get this closed out by end of June for their portion of the project. I'm excited about the work that they've done so far. I think that is most of the items on my list. I'm leaving a couple off, but in the interest of time, if there's any questions, happy to answer. Yes, sir.
I do have a question. How are the drivers finding making a left turn from Steamer Drive onto Wonderview? What kind of delays are they experiencing there?
We haven't started the season yet, but they, you know, so there's no idea to know until the traffic gets in there. But they think it will be better than what it is now, making the left out of the visitor center. I did go over that with the RAPPDEV general manager and with a couple of their supervisors, and they like the idea much better. So we'll see. All right. Thank you.
Engineering? Any engineering updates? No?
Yes, we have, construction for the annual STIP work is starting next week. Notice is being prepared and should be going out, Friday. West Elkhorn will be the first topic or street that will be tackled, and Colson plans on starting that next Wednesday with some of the more minor work with concrete repairs. So we'll see some short duration lane closures, possible flagging for brief periods for a few concrete repairs along West Elkhorn. And then the following week, they will switch to milling, which will be a one-way closure. So we'll have one-way closures while milling's going on, and detour routes will be signed. And then they'll have about 4 days, they think, of milling. So 1 full week of milling, and then paving operations will start the following week, which is May 5th. And then concurrently during that work, they'll also start milling and repaving the East Riverside parking lot. So that'll be right around that May 5th week as well. And after those two downtown projects are done, they're going to jump kind of all around town on different patching locations, and then they'll kind of be out of town for a couple months, come back in late July or early August and start Matthews Circle and Steamer Parkway.
34, 36.
34, 36, well, with weather, 36 might not be finished up this week, but that is the plan, or was the plan, to get.
CDOT's plan, right?
CDOT's plan, yes, to get 36, near Marys Lake Road finished this week. Pending weather, that could be pushed into next week for paving. They will still have another week or maybe 2 weeks of, private driveway approaches to pave and also shouldering operations. You've probably also noticed they started work on 34 last week. Similar there, they'll kind of focus on sections, do their milling, repaving, shouldering and driveway approaches if needed, and then move on to the next segment. Once they get away from Mall Road, it'll open up obviously as we have more, CDOT has more lanes of traffic to work with, so the closures and flagging will be a little bit less intensive.
How far west does the West Elkhorn one go?
Old Ranger Drive, so from the
Oh,
loop,
okay, okay.
the loop limits, just west of Moraine, all the way to Old Ranger
Old
Drive, which
Ranger,
we did 2
okay.
years ago.
And I was a little late. Do you all know this guy? You know who that is, Trevor? Okay, just making sure. What about engineers?
Fall River Trail, we are working through the last few steps to get 100% plans in our hands and through CDOT review. There's a couple of additional items that have come up with finalizing the design, so our consultant is working on getting those taken care of, but we're hopeful in the next 3 to 4 weeks we'll have 100% design plans on that. Tentative schedule, getting through clearances through the summer with CDOT and utilities. We could potentially advertise for bid in September at the earliest, so a November timeframe of starting construction is feasible. If that gets pushed, either way, we're in that November, December time range. And that project would be conditioned on completing it before Memorial Day of next spring, so similar to the last phase we did.
Great.
So how long is this phase?
It's about 3/4 of a mile.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay. Seems like a long ways when you're putting it down, but
Yeah.
walking or riding on it goes fast.
Yeah, and curves. It's, yeah, it's a windy section.
I mean, for Cleve Street, this season.
Okay. That paving done on cement, right on Fifth
Oh,
Street.
Trevor, the community drive site, in-house project, did that is that done?
100% complete.
Awesome.
Yeah, Parks put some topsoil out and seeded that recently, so I was just out there this morning, it looks really good.
All right, gotta go check it out.
Our Safe Routes to School grant application for another project on Community Drive by the ball fields and then on Manford out to the observatory
That's the sidewalk stuff.
sidewalk, that was declined. We
Oh,
did not
shoot.
get that award.
Do we know what we did wrong?
We do.
And what was it?
The feedback I heard secondhand was the award decisions went to projects that more effectively connected residential dwellings to the schools. Our application did not. It was viewed as more of an internal circulation path that allowed students to go from the buildings to the recreation areas, tennis courts, ball fields, things of that nature. And other agencies that were actually providing active ped connections from where people live to where they go to the school got the award.
Ouch. So there are other.
But they did
resources.
comment that they liked the thoroughness of the application and the content.
It was well written.
We got the consolation
course.
prize.
Oh, that's lovely.
On a Blanche.
So there are
Good job asking, but
Yeah.
didn't
The
make it.
thoroughfareness of the application.
So where do we land with it now? Are there other resource avenues?
We could explore, we will be exploring other grant opportunities,
Yeah.
so there's other, similar to the Fall River Trail grants,
Okay.
there are other opportunities that more align with the recreational facility.
Yeah.
That makes sense. GoCo, okay. Okay. Anything else?
I've got one additional item. This is an important one. Staff will meet in a joint study session with the town board this Friday afternoon to formulate the objectives for the 2026 strategic plan. In the transportation section of the strategic plan, our department has offered 10 recommended objectives for 2026. None of them are new. You're aware of, we've talked about all of them. I can read them if you would like, or alternatively, you can download the packet when it gets released for the study session, and you could provide comments to the town board directly if you care to.
But if we do it here real quick, it could be from Tab.
What's that?
But if we do it here, it'd be from Tab.
Yeah,
you go over your list
another
real quick?
option is Tab could, so this is just the formulation of the first draft of the objectives for the 2026 strategic plan. There will be a future action when the town board will decide to adopt the 2026 strategic plan. And that is the point where the town board would logically like to see some opinion from this advisory board regarding those objectives as they pertain to the transportation section.
So there will be opportunity.
There will be opportunity for this group to read them and comment on them and formulate a position.
Okay. So right now it's, yeah, it's
This is,
public
we're
works
creating
filter.
it's a working
Perfect.
session to create the first draft,
Okay.
yeah.
But you said that there's an opportunity for public comment ahead of that strategic planning session on Friday?
No, we're gonna
Okay,
have
I
we're gonna
misread.
have an open study session. Study sessions do not accept public comment, but if you care to, you can always reach out to any trustee and share your comments
Gotcha.
on any item.
Okay.
But if the formal opportunity has not arrived yet.
Right.
It's in the future.
Yes.
Typically, that gets addressed in concert with the 2026 budget, and typically in the fourth quarter of the year. Probably October, November-ish is when you'd expect to see that. So the month or two prior, then that should be on a tab agenda, probably for October or so, to get a comment letter from tab. And then lastly, the new Public Works Director starts in 2 weeks on the 28th, and so I'll probably join, David should be here at your next tab meeting, at your May meeting.
So when's the retirement party?
I know.
Nothing scheduled, I'm not retiring for a while, I'm just changing roles.
Okay, we'll have you leave the room and Lonnie can tell us.
I know. Okay.
I would like to say thank you so much, Director Mahonen, for your guidance and input and your thoughtful consideration of everything that we talk about. It's, for me personally, it's been a great pleasure to have you here. You'll be missed.
No, thank you, Larry, appreciate that.
Oh, so true.
I
Yeah.
second.
Thank
Third,
you.
fourth.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm among
Boy.
friends, thank you.
You're leaving big shoes to fill.
Will there be some overlap with you and David then?
Yeah,
New
well,
Public Works
yeah, I'm gonna be,
here?
I'll still, here?
For Tab, like,
I was planning on one meeting, but if you think we need more, we can.
well, you
open
guys
the
can work it
discussion.
out, but yeah.
Yeah, you work that out amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
But,
We'll
yeah.
talk to the town manager.
So, but yeah, I'm sure you'll offer, whatever.
Yeah, I've
he
started a
needs.
lengthy list
Yeah.
of things to talk about with the new directors. So.
Yeah, sure.
And tab is on the list.
Okay. All right. Update on past public comment. And all that. Yeah. Okay. Any other business? Then? Anything else? All right, then we're adjourned.
Good job.
1:59.
Whoa, we could have talked.
Thanks for letting us go on with, Department of Transportation, CDOT. That was helpful.
Well, To your point, your question previously about funding the parking structure,
Yeah.
one of the objectives that we're proposing to the town board